Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. I could probably do this every week because I just love it so much, and I think it's extremely important. And that is, like, how do I start a drawing? It kind of leads into where do I start a drawing? Why do I start a drawing in this particular way? Um, I always risk this thought of kind of over grandiosing, if that is a word, the idea of how drawing relates to life for me, and how much I've learned from the act of drawing and the mindset I have from drawing and trying to bring that into my day to day. And I'm going to try to share a lot of that with you today as well, because I think over the whatever, I don't even know how many years, it's like 25, 27 years of teaching. This has, then profoundly affected me in, not only my house, but all the jobs that I've had over those years. So before we get into all that, let's say hello to the gang, right? Let's see who we got here today. What a surprise. We have Swenley and Mattesi. How are you guys doing?
Good, excited as always.
Awesomeness. How are you, Mattesi?
Growing my hair and excited.
Yes. Look at Matunje's hair, everyone. I was asking him what kind of tonic he's rubbing into his scalp to make it grow back. So it's almost as long as Swenley. Swenley, what's going on there? You should be way ahead of the curve by now. I finally got a professional haircut this past weekend. Yeah, this past weekend. Yeah, and and I'm wearing a hat, of course, today because I haven't showered yet. You guys are getting to see Dirty Mike. Yeah, baseball cap and all. I think I'm wearing my Walt Disney Imagineering. Yeah, my Walt Disney Imagineering hat today. That's always a fun story. Maybe someday I'll tell you guys about that crazy trip. Yeah. So let's get into it, right? Let's talk about figure drawing, right? And how to start, right? It's a very, very common question that we get, not only drawingforce.com, but I think in general from students, like, hey, I've got this model in front of me, like, great, what do I do, right? I have to say, fortunately, most art schools will tell you, most, not all, but most will tell you, gesture, right? Gesture drawing, like that's where you should begin. I think the better schools will at least give you that, right? Like you should start with a gesture. And why a gesture? Why do we do these shorter poses? And typically you're like trying to capture some kind of essence or life, whatever you want to call it, out of the model, right? Well, I found that there's a lot more to this than just the concept of, learning how to draw. And some people love me for the fact that I like getting all philosophical about this, and some people hate it, but I do love it. So bear with me. To me, I talk a lot in the books about hierarchy. And here's an example of, if the triangle represents the whole pose, then typically we would start with the hips and the pelvis, and and so on. I mean, hips and pelvis, ribs and pelvis, arms, legs, and heads, hands and feet. So you're going from big ideas to medium ideas to small ideas, right? And that's kind of a for some, obviously they're very aware of that idea in human thinking, right? That there's systems in place in our world. There's gazillions of systems going on, not only in nature, but man-made systems, right? And being aware of those systems, and that you can bring systems over to drawing, right? So what we teach at drawingforce.com is I try to, me, Swenley, and Matunje, we all try to teach you through systems, because typically systems also help you learn faster, right? Instead of just shotgunning your approach and randomizing everything. It's equally important to be aware that if there is big to medium to small thinking, that means there's also small to medium to big thinking, right? In figure drawing, that might be starting off with something like fingertips or toes or the nose on somebody's face and trying to work your way out, and hopefully if you've been with us for a while now, that I talk about the lump of clay or throwing something down quickly because we want to get these big ideas going. We generally go from big to medium to small and massage our way down in that, right? Last but not least, I put the pyramid on its side. I did this because My last art direction job was at a company called Zynga. And I remember very clearly one of the guys, one of the GMs, it means general manager, who was kind of like the boss of one of the games. He had he had basically a pyramid, which in gaming is a funnel, right? And there's this funnel of like how the game's being built. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for like putting that up on your slide and recognizing the funnel and how things work, and that we can bring this into production, right? So what does this mean in production? It's like trying to get a lot of ideas over here and working really light and fast and cheap, right? As cheap as possible, meaning at the beginning, you want to bring in like the game designer, the creative director, you want to bring in some concept artists, right? Just to rough stuff out. Like you want to figure out how you can experiment as quickly as possible, iterate, right? Which we've talked about before. You want to be able to iterate on the cheap. You don't want a massive team at this point. This is more about like idea generation, and you want to be broad, right? You want to be broad. And then over time, this axis represents time, right? And then and I guess we could say that this represents maybe experimentation, right? EXP, let's call it. I know that could mean normally experience, but let's say it's experimentation, right? And that gets narrower and narrower and narrower. Now, ironically, at the same time, what does happen is going in the opposite direction, like this, team size goes from small, only a few people, right, to really big. So if you don't go through the blue triangle correctly, and let's say, instead of doing this, this represents experimentation, you go like this and you don't experiment a lot and you go like this, and then you suddenly go wide on the team, that means that you have not done enough experimenting and you've gone into production way too quickly, ramped up the team size, and something at the beginning has not been taken care of, which is almost always what happens. And this is what happens then with people getting hired and lives changing, because people can get fired by the fact that production hasn't been run well. So you want to take your time as much as you can, slowly going down the funnel, making sure you've answered all the potential questions that you can early on to get to a place where you can push into production and ramp up team size, and everyone's going to be okay. They're going to keep their jobs, and we're all going to move forward because the answers that needed to be answered are behind us, right? Well, the same thing happens in drawing, right? We want to understand the model as efficiently and as quickly as possible to grant us better success towards an end result, right? Right now on the website, I have a lot of the students that I mentor going through this process, which I'll share with you here very quickly. I have a lot of students doing like 30-second poses, right? And I have them go and draw numerous 30-second poses. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By 6, by the way, you've only worked for 3 minutes. We're talking about 30 seconds. So you're 3 minutes in here. No big deal, right? You're not wasting a lot of your life away. You got 3 minutes in here. And maybe here you go, you know what? That one feels really good. I'm going to invest more time in it. So now we go vertical, right? You go deeper into the drawing. So now you get to the 1 minute of it. Remember, it started 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. You broke something. It's not working anymore and you can't really fix it. So what happens? You go back. Now you're on drawing 7, 8. Oh, 8's already pretty good. Why? Because you already did 6 of them. You get to 7, you get to 8. 8's pretty good. So you start going down vertically again, right? And maybe this time you get to 8, 9, 10. And I usually cap off the students at 20 minutes, right? It's usually a 20-minute max. So you have this horizontal to vertical thing that's happening, right? You're doing all the iteration, right, at the front end, as much as you need before, right, before you go and shoot down the funnel. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes it doesn't work. You get over here and you go, oh, I need to go back, right? But this then might happen much faster, right? All of a sudden the funnel looks like this. There's less time being spent because you might get to the answer more quickly because of your past experience, you see? So this is a great exercise. I highly recommend all of you play with this. it's also a great reminder that, especially for those of you who've been drawing with us for a while, it's great to go back to the quote unquote beginning, which is what I think is the 30-second drawing. What am I trying to get out of 30 seconds? I'm trying to get the big ideas. You have to be pretty efficient about knowing what you're going to go after. It's also good to kind of just get your brain on fire and speed up, trust yourself. It makes you draw more gutsy, right? With more energy because you've got like a very short period of time. It forces you to not get stuck in detail and dawdle because you don't have that much time. 30 seconds goes by pretty quickly, right? So here's my recommendation for you guys, out there for this week, let's say, is try this out. Try taking a reference. So this would be R1, let's say one reference. You go through this 30 seconds and keep doing them until you feel like you've solved it. To throw this out there too, be aware of what you are doing in between each one. Take a moment and say, what am I going to change? What am I going to try to improve? What's not working in this one? Look at your reference. This is where your discernment comes into play, right? You having the ability to actually understand what is right and what is wrong, right? And that comes with practice and time, of course, as well. Okay, it doesn't seem like there's any questions in the chat so far. Let's keep going. So what's the point of all this? Well, like I said, I think one of the main objectives is time. There's one thing that none of us can increase for ourselves is time. We all have limited time. You want to work as efficiently and as effectively as possible, especially in a work environment, more in a work environment than at home. And I like playing the yin yang of everything. I like to be my own sort of, devil's advocate to my own speeches here. Is efficiency always the most important thing? No, and it's taken me years to be able to say this because I pride myself on trying to be really efficient. But, sometimes efficiency is not what's important. What's important is, is that you're happy working, right? That you like the way you're drawing. Maybe you're not the most efficient artist on the planet Earth, right? But you enjoy sitting there and drawing and working. So keep that in mind. So take with a grain of salt that you have to be hyper efficient. If anything today, I just want you to understand, not only are we talking about efficiency, but this is a very conceptual thing we're going to share with you today. It's like, what decisions am I making on where I start in the drawing? How do I start in the drawing, right? How does that actually begin and why are we doing it the way we're doing it, okay? All right, so I picked some reference models here today. Got this one to start with. I'm going to play around with this. Let's experiment, right? So I have this reference. Get myself a layer to draw with here. Try to go full screen. Get rid of the rulers. Okay. So it's like, what's going on? Our typical starting point at drawingforce.com is to understand the function of this pose. Let's just say I ignore it. I'm going to play around all over the place, right? I'm like, oh man, I love, I don't know, I love this hand out here in space, right? And I go out here and I start drawing this hand, right? And I sketch it out and I'm like, well, her thumb is like this, like this. Now, if we did have a clock going and I said, I only have 30 seconds and I did this, right? I'm going to be in trouble because, 30 seconds, maybe I get to like here, or maybe I start getting into the body, right? It's like, okay, what have I got? I don't have much of a story of anything, right? So that doesn't really work really well because I got caught, right? I turned the pyramid upside down. I got caught up in some details and I have barely anything to show. And the goal is to understand the pose, right? I love bringing in the word gestalt, which means like wholeness, right? We want to understand the wholeness of the body. So your goal is in 30 seconds to understand the big idea, which is like, how does the whole body work, right? And that's why you do these 30s over and over and over again, because, you might not get all the connections right from the start, which is totally fine, right? It takes practice and time. Now, what I want to make you aware of is one idea is great. I might have one idea in here of force. Maybe I say, I feel that her hip is pushing up. So this is here, right here on her body. It's pushing up. I like that idea. And I get caught up in there. I'm like, here's her shorts. Here's her rear end, right? Here's the side of her hip. Here's the other side of her hip. And I'm sketching my way through here. 30 seconds, like, comes around. Maybe I get a little bit of this leg in here and it's shooting up this way. And like, I run out of time. I went after one main idea. Does it feel like it's the main part of the pose? No, I feel like I'm still not telling the whole story. I do have the beginning of a comparison here. And that is, I have this idea maybe to the leg. I got like this leg going like this, and this, and her pelvis over here like this. It doesn't feel like I'm really getting, like I said, to the guts of the pose though, right? It's not really working. Let's see, select all. There we go. So now that I did that, I start recognizing, well, how's that really working in there? Maybe what I want to go after is if I go after her hip and I recognize that that's going to come down the other side of her body and down into her leg. Okay, that's a bigger conceptual idea. Right now I'm saying this is pushing up because of her leg driving down underneath. Right? That's interesting. Now I've thought of a connection, a relationship between the pelvis down into the foot. Notice I'm drawing with force, I'm drawing with energy, right? But I have a concept going on. There's a mental idea, there's some kind of construct happening, and that thinking is what starts making me decide on like where to go, right? How am I going to start this drawing, right? I'm starting to think about more of what's going on. How does this pose function? Okay, so not bad, pretty good start. And that's probably less than 30 seconds. What I start to recognize here is the fact that her hip is pushing up is what leads to, and I've got why it's pushing up, right? So the why is over here. It's like, well, because her leg's attached to her hip and it's driving down. So this is pushing up. But what I really like in here is I like how her rib cage falls off of this, right? There's like this, I would put the word hanging here, right? So I'm thinking about hanging going on here, right? That's interesting, right? So now I've got I've got three ideas, right? This triangle right here of concepts is starting to put this whole thing together, right? And then, I can start making sense of, well, if I had to stop here, I'm being pretty efficient because I'm going after main ideas of force and how they relate to one another. If I stopped here, it's still really not enough, right? In 30 seconds, I really want to get these big ideas down. I really need to, I need to get, I drew that for perspective, by the way, right? I'm like starting to plan out where I want that hand to grab the ground. I'm also looking at the negative space here, right? I'm like, where is this? So, I need to get her shoulder in here is what I'm getting at, right? I need this to get here and to get here and to get that hand down to the ground, you see? So if I ended here, not too bad, right? Let's say I got this far into 30 seconds. I have a pretty good idea of how things are starting to play out. I could see the leg. I could see the leg relating to the hip, hips pushing up off the ground. We have this fall and hanging into the chest. And I have how it is possible that the chest is able to sit there off the ground. It's her arm, right? Now you'll notice this actually really is the guts of this pose. If you look at the rest of it, right, it starts to make sense as its own little system. Because look at what's happening, right? Not only we come from the top of the hip and now we get down to this leg, which is going from front to back like so, right? That is there to counterbalance, right? To counterbalance against the shoulder going out to the arm and to the hand of the other side, you see? So we have this side over here that's balancing, out this way. And then we have this side over here balancing out this way, right? And then finally, there's the extra weight coming from her back. I want this rhythm of her neck and head. I would say it's about right here, right? And there's the pose. Now, I took my time doing this to step my way through it, but this is doable. This is doable in 30 seconds or less, probably like 20 seconds. It might take longer at the beginning for you because you're trying to figure the things out. But remember, if you finish at 30 seconds, you're going to do it again, which hopefully frees you up from the concern over, oh my God, I only have one shot, right? The point of iteration, I think one of the good psychological points of iteration is that you don't have to have the stress of, I only got one shot on this, right? You're going to do it over and over and over again to try and get it right, right? It's like, well, maybe I want to push the pelvis up higher, and I want the drop into the chest. I want this diagonal to be stronger. You see, maybe I push this. Maybe I got the angle wrong here. Maybe in one drawing I put it more vertical. Maybe in another one I put the diagonal stronger. Those will do very different things, right, to the pose. So these are the kinds of things I iterate on to make sure that it works, right? So be aware, where we start, of course, is we start with force, we start with function. The efficiency of force is something I really, really, really love and pride myself in with this drawing approach. Is in a very short period of time, I can tell if I'm right or wrong about the most important things in the pose, right? Instead of me investing time, and this is typically what I see happen with students that are coming in from the outside to learn how to draw with force, is they'll have like a 20-minute or a 1-hour drawing, right, that they've really put their love and time and attention into, and they're rendering it and they're doing all this stuff, but it doesn't work, right? The foundation is broken, the system is broken, there's no rhythm, it's stiff. There might be places where rhythm's not connecting the body from one place to another, right? And this gives you the opportunity to see big ideas very quickly, very simply, right? Now, one last thing I would add here, we've talked about leading edge in the past. Sometimes a little tough to tell where the leading edge is because it's so much from animation and movement. It's like, is the leading edge right now in her hip or is it in her chest? Like, depends on which way I want to move her. I would probably push it towards this bottom part of her rib cage because I would probably keep leaning her forward until she can't take it anymore, right? The weight over her arm would become too strong. If I kept diagonaling her leg, she would fall forward, right? Going this direction, and it'll get to a place where she can't do it. And she would, she'd bring her other arm down basically to like suspend herself, right? So any questions, let's see, on what I just did. Let's see, we've got Slobodan says, most of the teachers and artists encourage students to draw head first. Yeah, I had actually, I did have a teacher that taught me like that as well, by the way. And, I learned a lot about shape and so on about it, but it's not hierarchical. What happens is, especially in drawing faces, you trap yourself into the details of trying to draw a head, and you're not drawing from big to medium to small. So you ask, why is that, or why not start heads? Yeah, spine first. So number one, I don't think the head is the big driver. I kind of struggled with this for a little bit because having taken a little bit of martial arts, and for those of you that have, they'll tell you like the head feels like it's leading things, and sometimes it does. Sometimes the head could actually lead the way, but I don't know. I found over my years of drawing that the torso is typically where we have students start because it's such a huge mass. It's like the trunk of a tree, right? So you're really figuring out 50% of the model's pose in a very short period of time, and the head doesn't always lead the way. So I think saying always to anything or never to anything is a mistake. But I would say in general, I start with the torso. And then you asked, why is that, or why not start with the head and spine and then force? Because if you do just the head and the spine, which I see students do as well, it's just too generic. You're not starting with rhythm. If you just go with the head and spine, you got like sort of a crude skeletal thing that you're throwing down. Like, why bother? If you're going to go and draw a head and just a spine, why not go after some curves that are going to abstractly and very quickly represent function of a pose and rhythm, right? And rhythm is, I think, the best system that you can use to get through the body very quickly. So I hope that answers your question. The focus should be on story idea, not body parts. That's exactly right. If the head's action is the main idea, then it's, yes, that's what Swenley wrote. Totally agree. He's spot on with that. And sometimes I found it easier to have the head as an orientation, to have body. Yeah, it's an interesting exercise, by the way, talking about this whole head thing, is imagine you drawing a figure and drawing the head and then drawing the feet, right? And trying to fill in the space of all the different rhythms. Or I used to do this a long time ago. I used to have students draw the model from starting with the feet and work your way up. It's like building a house, right? That's actually something I should bring back. I think it's a fun exercise after you know enough about rhythm and force. because you really get a sense of the gravity and how you build yourself from the ground up. Very challenging, though. I have to say, very challenging, because again, hierarchically, you're starting from a small place and moving up to bigger places, Subcon said, I got the Force Companion and it's helping me understand a lot more. Awesome. About the functions of the poses and the main ideas of forces, I think I've been over abstracting before. That could definitely happen as well. I wouldn't, blah, blah, maybe because I'm not studying anatomy. It doesn't have to be anatomical. It is about abstraction, to Subcon's point. I think you want to see movement. What we're trying to teach you at drawingforce.com is, can you look at the noun of the body, which is a thing, but understand that the thing is moving, and the body's parts, the nouns of the body, are actually connecting to one another. And so you're looking at a noun and we're trying to have you see the verb in that noun. And I think that's the biggest challenge of learning the approach that the three of us are teaching. Can we see an example of a CS from reference? I'd have to see if I have one. If I have one, we'll point. Maybe one of the guys has one. I'm not sure. I feel when starting from the head, you're likely to mess up the proportions. Yeah, proportions tough, says Peta and Marla. It's hard either way, honestly. Drawing the head, it's tough when you start with the head and then trying to get the body right. It's hard also from a drawing force standpoint of drawing the whole body and getting the head right. And their relationship is so important that it's easy to mess up. And there's all kinds of tricks around, trying to do that. I went through that myself. I very clearly remember always the head being too big or too small, and it was super frustrating. Daniel says, when we get to shape, could we use 20-second shapes instead of only? Yes. So Daniel's kind of talking about the future of what we're discussing here today, which is, I'm just showing you the abstractions of force, but when you really understand force shape, you can go right for shape and silhouette and just add a little bit of form. Noah is here. Congrats, Noah, you made it. Sahil says also, when is the force character design new book come? Oh, that won't be until the end of next year. Okay, so we're all caught up. Let me take a look really quick and see if I do have a CS. I can't remember if I brought one in here. This, by the way, is the super rare of all. This is an RS. This is a reverse S. The reason it's a reverse S is normally a regular S would go from, let's say this is the head. This would go from the back to the stomach, right? That's the norm. So this is an S. Here, we're going from the pelvis to the front of the chest, right? We're falling down into the chest. This is what I call an RS, or reverse S. The rarest of all torso breeds, right? All right, let's take a look. I'll try to do one more, and then I'm going to hand it off to the other guys. Let's see. So what did we want? A CS. That's not a CS. And I don't think I have one here either. No. Nope. So maybe one of the other guys will grab one for you. So here I'm just going to do a 30-second. Let's just kind of crank through a bunch of drawings here, right? If one of you guys can kind of track time or count in your head would be great, because I'm going to just try to draw. Right. So I want to get this. I want to note something here. Notice what I did. Some students look into this and go, "Oh, he's drawing ellipses." No, no. What's happening here when I did that is I'm just still touching the page and I'm trying to hit this curve of the back, and you're seeing me loop my way up to the top. I'm not saying I'm drawing the rib cage like this. Okay. So be aware of that. I'm not doing that. It's just the motion of my hand. We could argue and say, if there is an ellipse in there, I'm hitting one side of it, maybe, but I'm not going to try and draw an ellipse. I'm feeling out the curve of the back. Okay. All right. So kind of re-click the clock back here. So I'm doing this, and then I want that to pull down into here, right? And I'm going for main ideas, right? So I've got this, I got the shoulder like this. I see her spine is in here. I've got form in here because of how I wrapped around. I want her hip to be on an angle like this. I'm going to go for the strong leg first, right? Because I'm prioritizing in my head what matters the most, right? I'm doing this through force. Someone had asked about shape. Oh, Daniel, right? So I'm just doing force here. I'm not doing shapes. I'll try that on the next one. I'll try to go for one that's shape driven, right? But here's kind of just like a quick drawing, all right? So it gives me the guts of it, probably under 30 seconds.
Yeah, 25.
right? Yeah, so 25 seconds, right? And there it is, right? Is it all totally accurate? No, that's okay. It's my first shot. I can do it again, right? And I can do it again, and I can keep like learning off of this. Like, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let's try one a little bit more with shape. I'm going to get the forces in there first. Here's a shape for the torso. Always struggling with space on the computer. I can feel this is taking a little longer because I'm shaping things out. All right, so there's the pose. Want that angle of the foot in there. So there's another drawing, right? So you can see, in 30 seconds, around 30 seconds, that you can get a whole pose down, right? So this is what I would recommend is the system I was talking about before. You do 30 after 30 after 30 after 30, probably not shape because most of you are probably not up to that. It would probably be more something like this. And then as you do it, you go, man, that one's really good. My 7th drawing is good. Let me start adding more information, right? So then you can get in there and say, let me get a little more of the silhouette. Let me get the form in there, right? I didn't add much form in this 30 seconds, but fortunately in this one, I had the wrinkling of like her skin in here. So that kind of insinuates like the roundness of this. You see what I mean? Right? So it was just going after the main ideas as quickly as possible. Let's take one last shot at this guy because I love this pose that Noe did here. Similar to the other ones, this is a reverse S, right? I want to push up in the pelvis. I want to drop down into the rib cage, right? There's this really great like leaning out that she's doing here to get her hand down there. Notice I'm throwing form in there to get some concepts going. I love this leg. It feels like it really locks into this knee. It's coming out in perspective, right? I've noticed the perspective of her foot over here, right? This one's in here. It's also an out and out, and it's like going down the side of her. It's landing about right there, right? We got this other one sweeping all the way back in space. Her hands like here. We finally have like her neck and her head over here, right? So pretty quickly, again, it's about getting those big ideas down, making sure that this all works. I feel like I crunched her in here. Yeah, you can see I changed the angle. It's not right. It needs to be out here more because I was like playing up against the edge of the screen. Notice the looseness too. You're not going to be neat and fast. Like thinking is messy and speed is a little more messy than doing a cleanup. I'm putting down lines and all the lines are thoughts of me trying to connect the whole body, and I'm getting a little bit of form in there. Sometimes I'm getting a little shape. I shaped out most of her torso here, for instance, right? What's awesome here though is, again, I'm around 30. I feel like I was a little over 30 on this one. But here's the big picture, right? And I can keep working with this and noticing if the angles are right or wrong, or things working correctly or not, right? So for all of you out there that always that are thinking like, where should I start my art education? Where should I start my figure drawing? How do I do a figure drawing? You just want to find those initial rhythms, right? Find the fluidity of the body. You can see there's lots of parts of the body I did not draw. I don't need them right now. I need to find the path. I need to find the road through the figure to understand if I got the most important part down, which is the whole system of rhythm, which is how they work. I can go in there now and keep adding. I can say I want the shape of the leg. I can throw more form in here. We can throw more anatomy in here, right? I can get more accurate with the shape and silhouette of the anatomy, right? Like all that stuff can still come to play, but I've got the accurate skeleton down. By the way, I use the same tactic when I draw on location. People always are like, how do you draw people like walking around and moving and so on? I start with their forces, then I can get their shapes in there. And then as they're walking past me, I can throw on clothing, a shape and form, but at least I have the skeleton of force down, right? So that's why I pitch this so strongly because I know it works, right? I know that if I get the system down, I can keep throwing stuff on top of the system, but I want the foundations, like the frame of a house, right? All right, before I go, let's see if there's any last questions I can answer, and then I'm gonna hand it off. On a prior video, let's see. On a prior video, you discussed how to see before you even start to draw. Will you ever do a topic? Yeah, we can definitely do that. How to see, most definitely. That's a great topic, actually. Mattesi is answering. Patrick, I love this sketch. Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Do you focus on the rib cage and pelvis when the first? Yeah, I would say to Ann 12 Cub. Typically, the beginning is the relationship between the pelvis and the rib cage. You got these two giant hard masses of the skeleton, right? And it's how do these two things relate to one another? How are they pushing and pulling? What's their relationship, right? And a lot of I think that's very astute of you. A lot of what we're doing is figuring that out, right? If I didn't have any photo reference here and I'm just drawing, right? Like I'm going to be abstract for a second here. Let's just say there is a blob of a rib cage and a blob for the pelvis, right? So rib cage and pelvis. A lot of force starts off with what's the relationship between these two guys, right? How's that actually working? You know, is it a C torso where it's bending this way? Is it an S where it's going from the back to the front? Right? Is it an RS, right? Where it's going from the front to the back, you see? And what these guys do determines that, right? So here they're very straight, but what if I have a rib cage that's more like this, you know, and a pelvis that's like this? It's like, oh, well, that's probably a C torso, right? Because it's doing this, you see? So these two guys and what their relationship is typically idea number one. Thank you for saying that, because that led to some really cool little diagrams here. That's usually the start. And if we go back to my pyramid concept, right, that's my first initial thought, is how does this all come together and work? Okay. All right, I'm going to jump off. I'm going to hand it over to Mattesi, I believe, right? And then I'll try to field questions from you guys there in the chat.
All right.
All right, all yours.
Oh, you have to give me permissions.
Oh, yeah. So frustrating. Zoom keeps making things more challenging now. Here, hold on. I'll make you co-host on both because I'm not sure which one is it. There you go. That should get you in, and I'll take care of Swenley right now too.
Nope.
Okay.
It's still not giving me permission.
Oh, you know why? I probably can't give you both. Hold on. You tell me which one is the one that works for you.
Mm-hmm. The one I don't have the photograph on. I mean, the video on.
Okay, that's the one you want. Okay, here we go.
My brother.
Yes, yes, your twin brother. Exactly. All right, tell me if that works for you.
All right, that works, I guess.
Yeah, great.
Okay. All right, so keeping up the same thing, what Mike says, starting off with the big picture, it is so important, you know, and such an I think it's underrated, you know, because you know people start with details, and I've been into that kind of environment where I was like, oh my god, you know, and there's like, oh, you have to like start from the head, you know, more like this. You have to start from the head, and then like measure out like how head tall that is, right? It's such like a mundane concept, you know, and you're just like stuck up with, you know, the measurements and how head tall, the wide it is. It is important, you know. I'm not saying it's just like, you know, just let it go and never learn that. It is important, but I think it's very boring, you know. And what we are trying to find out is how do I start, you know, with excitement, basically. So here I have one post, which is again I love, by Noe. So let's get started. So one thing that I usually do like before starting is, I think that's a mistake that most people do, is like they see the photograph and they just jump right in. Okay, it's okay, you know, it's good, by the way, if you just like want to have fun, just like get something on the papers, like doing something like this and this. But maybe you just want to watch it, you know. This is something you cannot have like in a live drawing session where you just have like 30 seconds or 2 minutes, like a specific time to draw. But when you have photograph, you can have an advantage of that technique, which is just watching the model and ask yourself question like, what do I want to show through my drawing? Okay, so let's say I won't show this reference to my viewer. Well, what he's gonna think, right, watching my drawing? Is he gonna get the same feeling out of that, right? The, let's say, the weight of her hand, like how she's pushing onto the ground and how the ground is like pushing back up, you know, more like this. Um, so if the viewer is successfully able to see all those things in a drawing, in a 30-second drawing, I'm specifically saying, well, that that might not be very clean drawing. Obviously, it will be a messy drawing, but that's a successful drawing. Okay. So let's start. So before that, I just wanna say it's like the rhythms that I'll go for. Okay, like really really quick one. So maybe if one of you guys can time me, that would be great. And I'll start this one. All right. So again, you don't see the cursor here, but I'm just like doing this. Like kind of like air drawing. You're kind of like warming up before that. So let's get started. So I wanna go with this rhythm here. It's really really cool rhythm. Okay. Let's see the bud division. Really cool. All right, like this. See, it's like this. And now I want to get this hand done because it's such an important function. Because again, we are going for the functions, not the visual concepts. Um, this hand is like super important for the function because without this hand, she's gonna fall off. So get her other hand done, and there's this thing here. Okay. Well, that's done. My ideas are already done. Now I can start like maybe some form on top of this and more like this.
So
Start
your
like
initial there took about 40 seconds, just so you know.
okay, so not 30, but we'll get in there in the
Yep.
next one. Okay. All right. Oh, I messed up drawing the photograph. All right, so let's get another one. Yep, drawing a layer. My bad habit. Anyway, so let's get this one going. All right, start with this. So I want to get this push in the back and see that bush concept there. It's like one long idea. See, from her rib cage all the way down to the pelvis there and to the leg as well. So it includes all of that. Now this hand is important for the function here, so I'm gonna go for this right there. Okay, and this other hand, let's say going there. Not getting the head first of all, but getting the pose, the story of it. Okay, like how that uh, pose is functioning. So more like this, and this leg is kind of like going from the middle there, and then getting the head down. Okay, more like this. See, so getting the main ideas down very very quickly. Right. This is one. So again, this is just like one drawing I'm doing right now, but you can just like go with more and more and more. It's just like you losing 30 to 40 seconds. So let's say if I can do another one. Like I want like more strongness in there. I guess I didn't have like too strong hand in the previous one, so I want to get that and still that push like this concept in there. Uh, yeah, more like this. Getting some form out of this, getting this leg in the middle, like there. Hmm. And see, that's how I'm like starting. Just like really very simple. And to be honest, like this is the fun part of me. This is why I'm doing force. To just tell you guys, it's so exciting. Just to see something emerge out right in front of your eyes. I think that's like mere seconds to do that. It's so exciting. I've never thought of, by the way, like before introducing to force, to tell you guys that figures can be done like this quickly. You can still make the viewer feel everything that the pose has. Okay, all right. It's I have this one here, so let's
Oh,
get
can I
this one.
interrupt for a second? You go back to that other drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the iteration here. Can you bring the photograph up too?
Uh,
Um, the iteration here. What I like that Mrityunjay did in two drawings is he was talking about the shoulder and try to bring more of its power in there. When I look at this drawing and the pose, I my by me drawing it over and over. Sometimes you need to draw to find, right, to discover. And I would keep pushing. For me, what I would keep pushing on is the squeeze, right? It's like the shoulder is helping thrust the torso against the leg that is furthest to the right, and the other leg is the sandwich, right? The leg against his chest is like the burger in the bun, right? And then we've got his back against the far leg that's on the outside. And the idea is just how much squeezing is going on there. And his shoulder, his body wants to pop open and let the bun out of, let the hamburger out of the bun, right? But he's pinned his shoulder in there with his arm behind his back to hold that damn thing in there because it wants to pop out. So as I iterate, I have a feeling if I were drawing this, I would keep trying to go, oh my God, it's about the squeeze. I need to get more squeeze. It's not enough. More squeeze. It's not enough. More squeeze, right? And I would keep iterating on that until I was satisfied with thinking my drawing is representing this squeeze, right? Squeeze is like the big word here for me. And I love his arm is basically just like a shoved in bar in the back to hold the bun from not popping out, right? And just sandwiching in there really tight. And you see Mattesi did that with, he caught on to, in his 2 iterations so far, he caught on to the idea of, I got to get the shoulder working better. But why? Well, it's because that other leg is pinned in there, right? And it wants to fall back. So here's why the arm starts working. And I think someone said earlier, hey, can we do a video on like, how do you see before you start? You try to see as much as you can, but sometimes it doesn't matter. You might miss things until you actually start to draw. When you draw, you want to be open-minded enough to keep seeing more and more and more and discovering, and then go, oh, now I get it. Like that to me is so much fun. It's so exciting to keep doing the drawing because I'm finding more information, right? And getting it better and better. And that's what you do through the iteration. And then you'll finally go like, okay, I think I finally understand. Believe me, you'll get to this place where it's like, click, like light comes from the heavens, right? And you're like, I get it, I understand. Okay, this is the one I'm finally going to work on now because the whole pose is there. I understand its gestalt. I understand the holisticness of this, the wholeness, right? Okay, thank you, Mattesi. So let's pass it off to Swenley so we don't run out of, I don't want to squeeze him too much. Talking about sandwiches, I don't want to squeeze him too much on time.
Yeah, sure.
That was great though, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for it.
Yes, awesome, Mattesi.
Right, great.
See if you can, yeah, see if it works for you, Swenley. Is it good? Okay, good.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Let's get started. So yeah, when we talk about, I think the main, one of the main lessons to learn is, you really want to focus on the main idea. I mean, it's such a waste of time to like get bogged down to details, and then you're 30 minutes in, but then you discover like you missed the whole story of the pose. So I'm going to do a bunch of 30 seconds here. Let me time myself. Let's see. So 30 seconds. Okay, let's go. So this is hanging. There's a lot of compression going on here. Like this arm is super important. Like that's the support of the pose. We've got this here. This leg. You can see the fluidity here of this leg, and this arm's also a bit hyperextended, and she's holding this foot. You can see the center, which leads right into the head and neck. You need a bit more applied force here, and that's about 35 seconds. So the main idea of the pose is here. So, and once you can draw, I mean, you're confident that you can take a sketch that is as loose as this and refine it into a more finished drawing. So that's not an issue. Like then your focus really needs to be draw the main idea. Like grab the like what is the pose about? And once you have that, that's the foundation of the building, and then you can spend time building without worry that things are going to fall apart. Okay, let me do another quick iteration here. So before I do that, what do I want to like improve? Now I see the angle, like this arm is at a much stronger angle, like she's leaning more. And I think the rest is working pretty well. So
I want to go into that real quick. That angle on the arm you just talked about, we talked about angles and how important they are a few videos back. To Swenley's point, her arm is more horizontal than he drew. What I want you guys to be aware of is it's not just a sight thing. I want you to be aware of what does that mean, right? Like, how does that affect the way this whole pose works? The further out she puts her hand from her knee, the more she's falling over, the more stress there is on her rib cage, the harder her shoulder has to work, right? So I'm aware of the angles and the forces are actually, they mean something to me. It's not as simple as just trying to copy the pose and get it right. Changing the angle and getting it to be stronger is her reaching out more away from her body, and therefore she's falling into that shoulder more. And those are ideas, those are ideas that we're trying to capture in the drawing and feel out what does that do, right? What is the function there? Okay, sorry, Swinley.
Oh, thank you. That's a great addition indeed. Like, there are, like, this subject of accuracy always comes up, and there are different ways of arriving at accuracy, like the angles and everything. We see the positive and negative shape, the direction of the forms, it's all because of the action. So if you focus on drawing the action accurately, then all those things will start falling into place, and then you can check, and you can correct, as you go. So let me see, let me quickly do another one. I want even more hanging into this. Let's see if we can push that even more. Like this hyperextended. I keep going off screen with that arm. See it once. This right here. And this leg feels a lot of applied force on that knee, and this feels like super fluid and forceful in this arm. Again, it's hyperextended and it's holding that foot. Okay, so that's in about 40 seconds, and
you're about 35 actually. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and again, the main idea of the pose is here, so now I can decide, okay, maybe I really like this particular drawing, so I'm going to spend a little more time on it. So let me just make it a bit smaller so the whole pose fits on the screen, and I'm going to reduce the opacity and do a layer on top. So let's see, about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Start the timer, okay. So let's see, now I'm slowing down a little bit, but not too much. I don't want to get too indulged into the details. I still want to draw the vitality and energy of the pose. And I'm using that quick sketch as my basic blueprints to build upon. So I can feel this hanging. She has like an hourglass shape, so I have to add a little bit for the pelvis on the other side. I can draw like the V shape of the pelvis here. Top of the pelvis would be around here. Okay, let's see. Let me check this angle. I can see the natural center. Just going down. Okay, that works. So this arm again is super important to the pose. So I want to make sure that I get it there, and starting to use a bit more of shape. Like the quick sketch was mostly force, the rhythms. And once the rhythms are in place, it's easy to start closing those shapes. There's a lot of applied force here. You can see how this thigh fits into the pelvis. And it's coming out around the knee. Now I can use a force shape here. Start defining that more. A simple force shape here for this foot. You want to stay loose and fluid. Someone asked, I think in the chat, about finishing a drawing. It's really like more of the same, and the most important thing is just learning how to draw You know, like once you learn how to draw force, form, shape, anatomy, like the question of how to finish a drawing will answer itself. You know, it's not that big of a deal then. Okay, we got that. Let's get the other shoulder here. So I'm looking for how force is coming from this side of the torso all the way here in the shoulder. I'm feeling the applied force, and this arm again is hyperextended. So we have a directional force at the back, one at the elbow joint, and this is going down. And it seems like this foot needs to move just a little bit more. Yeah, the angle is a bit more like this. So by staying loose, it's easy to make quick changes. You know, it's not that big of a deal because you didn't invest that much time into it. Okay, I can draw like a simple rib cage, and you can see the pit of the neck, and there is this socket here where the neck fits on top of the rib cage. I'm using this neck muscle here as the directional force. I'm looking at what's the distance of the chin from the top of the torso, and I see this needs to be a bit longer. Yeah, the simple shape here for the head. No, and last week, of course, we talked about staying on model, and we showed a lot of more like finished drawings, you know, but this is the way to start. You know, you start loose, fluid, and forceful, and you slowly work your way up to a more finished drawing. But you want to make sure that the story is there, you know, the main idea. Okay, I see I'm about 4.5 minutes in. And also, again, I've used the sketch underneath as my guide for this one, you know, and then I can do another pass and refine it further and start being more specific. So notice I didn't get into facial features and any of that stuff yet. Like, that's not important. You know, I want this to work. You know, I'm seeing things like, where's the knee? This feels like it needs to be a bit longer. So that's why you want to stay loose and fluid, you know, so you can easily fix things and move things around, and you don't become like too attached or too precious about the drawing because you spend a lot of time on it. Okay, I see it's 2 minutes before we end. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned a lot from this, and I would say just loosen up. You know, one of the major things I see is people getting too stiff and precious with the drawing. Loosen up and just feel the energy, and get more accurate with the placement and stuff as you progress. You know, but first go for the main idea and the energy of the pose.
Yeah, awesome, Swami.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so to close up, everyone, our goal today was to hopefully give you more direction and support and confidence in like where to start. Like, how do I do this, right? And you know, you don't want to start with little things. You want to start with bigger things. You want to find relationships. You can get pretty abstract. Here, I'm going to go to Photoshop one more time before we leave. You can get pretty abstract with, you know, with what am I after, right? A successful 5-second drawing could, you know, could potentially be something that's like this, to something that's like this, and go, okay, here it is. I drew for 5 seconds. I've got the big idea, right? I've got the rib cage to the pelvis. I only had a few seconds, but I've got a relationship going on. There's a lot going on between this and this, you see? And in time, your ideas get longer and longer. I might take that same concept and say, you know, I could actually draw all the way from one side of the rib cage, the contour of the body, come all the way through and up and over, and in the same amount of time, have something that feels not only realistic in the way the contour is drawn, but there's a main idea here. There's already rhythm in here. It's a C torso, right? And it didn't take me that long to draw it, you see? And the idea was really long, right? I went all the way from like here to here pretty much in one line. And that encapsulated numerous other thoughts. Like I squeezed 5 ideas along one line, right? And that takes lots of time and practice to take the simplicity of, let's say, here's a force curve and here's a force curve, right? And for that to grow into something like this, right? But that's kind of where it can go. You know, it's like how sophisticated can you get? Always challenging yourself with how long is a concept, because remember, the line is an idea, right? So anyway, like I said, I hope that helps you guys today. Try to be efficient, but not at the risk of hating drawing. I think artists are not typically very efficient. We're usually more hedonistic than that. Like, it's the love of drawing. Hopefully you'll find a love in being efficiency, being efficient. And that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you. I got a really great list of questions from you guys today for possible videos. So yeah, come back next week. We'll probably be tackling one of the things that came up in the live chat today. Let's see, before we leave, Subkam said, can you also make a video about the main things to consider that are similar and different from traditional and digital drawing regarding brush and settings and how similar, yeah, we can do that. We'll talk about traditional to digital tools, right? Traditional to digital tools. Let's see, very helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. The 4-line method. Yes, the 4-line method is something that's on the website. It's like, try to draw the whole figure in 4 lines. That's really extending your thoughts. And that's it. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Matunje and Swenley. It's great to see you guys and to draw together with you. And we will see all of you in a week, right? Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the beginning of summer, right? Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.